Good morning and welcome to another vent story time. So I get up, check my emails, chill, cute, and casual. Guess whose rent is going up for the second time this year? This bitch. It went up the first time in June, as in 2 months ago. So this year total, it went from $1,200, so $1,250, to $1,800. Gagged again! And the kicker of this whole situation is I need to give a 60-day notice to leave this place, otherwise you get a fee if you break the lease, right? And they sent this notice 70 days before the rent increases. So I've got 10 days to figure out whether I'm going to stay or sign up more for $1,800 a goddamn month, move out of state, which I've been thinking about doing in spring anyways, but now I'm rushed, or get a roomie or move somewhere in Fargo, which I don't want to do because my whole moving thing was going to be for out of state. Thank you for coming to my event. I love life. I love it.
I want to show you guys something. I live in my car, right? Let me show you the situation. All right, I live in Silicon Valley, right? And let me show you just a street that I'm walking on. Luxury apartments, right? Condominium type, really luxury style. These are like 30 to 40% full because companies like Essex, Prometheus, things like that, they're going around telling their investors that people can afford $4, $5, $6 grand a month for apartments. And you know what people are doing? They said no. They said no. I'm not paying that. Absolutely not. So that's the bubble that's about to pop, is these companies telling investors, Prometheus, Essex, real estate companies telling investors that people can afford $4 or $5 grand a month when they can't. And especially now with inflation and the way that things are going, they're really not going to be able to afford it. So yeah, that's the type of protest that people are putting now. They're just refusing to pay the ridiculous prices. I actually was kicked out of my apartment because of COVID stuff. I applied for relief, and then they were like, "Oh, you still have to leave the apartment, even though they said you were protected and you're not." And then they offered me the same apartment, $2,400 a month. When they're only allowed legally to raise it 3% or 5% or something, and that was $600 above the limit. So these companies are trying to just mess people up, and people are refusing. See? And I'm really proud of people, because this is ridiculous. I can't tell you how many people I know, young and older especially, that are living in their cars and all of this, and I can't tell you how many companies are wondering, where are my employees? How come I can't find employees? They're living in their car, idiot. That's where your employees are. Talk to your people that are lobbying different things that are going on, especially these real estate companies. Love y'all.
The rent is too damn high. The rent is too damn high.
I represent the rent is too damn high party.
It's because of inflation. Don't say inflation. It's not inflation. It's greedy landlords. Rent increases have outpaced inflation. Rents rose 14%, which is much higher than the overall inflation rate of 9.1% year over year calculated back in June. It is worse than that in some cities.
Rent is too damn high.
In some cities, it is much worse, up to 30%.
Rent is too damn high.
The Fed raising interest rates doesn't help. That means it's going to be more expensive for people to take out mortgages with the higher interest rates, and that's going to drive would-be buyers into the rental market, further driving up rents. So how are home prices going up if people can't even buy them? Investors bought 24% of single-family homes nationwide last year, and this is up from 15 to 16% annually going back to 2012. So investors buying the homes increases the housing costs? Investors will buy 6 homes, 4 of them for $200,000, but the last 2 for $400,000, effectively raising the estimated price of homes in the area. Then they'll sell the first 4 with a $200,000 gain. But this means they've now priced out all of the sellers, forcing them to become renters or leave the area. Okay, so what if you can't afford to rent, you can't afford a house, and you can't afford moving costs? Over the past few months, homeless shelters are reporting wait lists have doubled and tripled in size. So what do we do about the landlords? People have a lot of ideas about that, but the bottom line is we need a public option for housing. We need rent stabilization, and we need to prevent the sale of any homes for people using it as a way to flip them and make money, as an investment property to turn it into a rental. So if housing costs are so high, how are we on this really nice porch in a suburban neighborhood? Because this is a stock photo.
Rent is too damn high, and there's nothing else to talk about. Rent is too.
Living in Texas is no longer affordable. We don't tell y'all not to move here just because of traffic. You guys have driven the housing market insane. The home I currently live in was purchased at $280,000. It's about a 3,000 square foot house, 2 stories. After 2 years, today, this house is valued at over $580,000. That's more than a 100% jump, a 300,000% increase in value in 2 years, because the housing market is going crazy. I'm thinking about moving out right now, and I literally would not be able to afford a home that I could just 2 years ago. I'm gonna be living in the slums. You cannot come from California to Texas trying to pay California prices. Y'all have effed the market up. People paying $100,000 over asking. Who's doing that? 2 years ago, you could get a mortgage for $1,700. A mortgage. Now it's looking like rent for a 2-bedroom. Y'all really upset me.
This was my first apartment in Atlanta, okay? Now, this apartment was on Lenox Road and near Cheshire Bridge. Now, that is an expensive area, but the apartments were cheap because, one, they were older. Keep in mind, this was 23 years ago. They were old back then. Several of the units are basically under the freeway, like in this alley area. And it was very hard to get in and out of this apartment because it is on such a congested intersection. I remember crying because I couldn't get in and out. But the location itself was good. It was on a bus line. It was near shops. So I used to have my grown-up job, and then I would walk down to the Terra Theater and work my little part-time job. It was dreamy, right? My 1-bedroom apartment was $575. Now, keep in mind, my unit was under the highway freeway. So you heard traffic all night long. It was on an alley, right? $575. Do you know how much a 1-bedroom is now? $1,675. What? My sister, like a year or two later, we got a 2-bedroom apartment. Do you want to know how much the 2-bedroom apartment is now? Back then it was $775. $1,800. That's for a 2-bedroom. Literally all they did was paint some stuff, photoshopped a couple photos and put them on the website, and bam, 3 to 4 times as much. And to top it off, this place has a 3.9 on Google reviews. Because it was old back then. I can't even imagine what's going on now. And this place was built, had to have been in the 60s or 70s. $1,675. That's crazy. That's crazy.
Unlike something like gas, rent is not an expense in your monthly budget that you can simply choose to cut back on, right? The alternative is homelessness. And to your point, homelessness is being criminalized in states like mine, like Missouri, and all across the country. So people are trapped in a really violent cycle right now where they're either forced to overdraft and cut back on meals and turn off the lights and sacrifice their humanity, or they're forced to the streets where they're criminalized for their poverty. Congress is set to pass the Inflation Reduction Act. It doesn't have anything to do with reducing the rent. In our view, the president and his team have been thinking about gas and many other elements in inflation, and they've really been neglecting rent. This is the elephant in the room. Rent is the largest expense for most American households, and it's a core driver of inflation. So even as the Inflation Reduction Act passes, for it not to include rent is a major red flag. We're calling on the president to do everything in his executive authority to direct agency level action, of course, to direct congressional action, and to use the power of the pulpit to call this crisis what it is, which is a national emergency, and to call out those actors in the private market that are actually rent gouging, using inflation as an excuse, but raising rents beyond the rate of inflation.
So I pay $2,000 a month for my apartment, but I was seeing that you guys pay like $3,000 for like a 1-bedroom in like the middle of nowhere, Florida. I'm like, wait. Where does the government or whoever decides that get to tell us? Like, and what's so stupid and annoying is that we're gonna pay it because there's no other option. Like, somehow collectively as a society, we have figured out really receiving no more extra pay on how to like pay extra for rent and groceries. Grocery shopping per week literally cost me like $100, probably more. And I eat relatively healthy, so that's probably why. But oh my God, like, it's insane. But we have somehow as a society been able to afford everything that's like doubled exponentially in price over the last couple years, but with no pay raise. Really, like maybe a couple hundred, but nothing insane. It's just funny. We're in a simulation.
I am so tired of looking at apartments. Why do I need $10,000 to move in when I could buy a whole ass car with that and live in the car? And you may be wondering, what do you mean $10,000? Well, first off, I would need 1 month rent, 1.5 month security deposit, realtor fee, which is usually a month of rent, plus application fee and some other fucking bullshit fees. So then that leaves me to think, how are people supposed to afford to live anywhere? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And then on top of it, all the really cheap apartments are the size of a closet, and they don't even have a closet at all, so where am I supposed to put my clothes? Another question I have, why do I need to pay a realtor to open the apartment door for me? Like, I'm sorry, like, for anyone that's in real estate, I find that to be the stupidest thing. Please stick to selling houses and not apartments, because I'm renting, I'm not buying. And then you're probably thinking, oh, just get a better paying job. I should not have to be getting a better paying job. The rent should just be cheaper. Like, I think that is the fucking issue.
Bro, stay with your parents as long as you can. If I could go back in time, I would live with my parents until I was 30. I do not care. Don't leave until they drag you out of their house and go back into their pantry and stuff as much food that your pockets can goddamn carry. I'm paying for a studio by myself. I pay for a car, I pay for all my bills. I feed my cat. I don't have room for avocados anymore. How am I supposed to eat my eggs? I'm not even thinking about vacation. I'm staying at my house for I don't know how long. Don't get pressured on leaving, like, God, cruel world, bro.
Why are rent prices so high in America right now? Well, I'm going to show you.
The housing market jumped incredibly because during the pandemic, the United States decided to print massive amounts of money and caused a huge amount of inflation, which all went into PPP loans for the most part and dispersed it to all the people that were already super rich who then bought all the housing to make sure that they could extort more and more people for more and more money because they know if the housing inventory got low enough that they could charge whatever they wanted to if they owned the housing themselves. So corporations just bought everything in mass to make sure that normal people can't afford housing, and then they jacked up the prices even more so that they made sure that the people that can't afford housing are giving away every little cent that they can, because that makes sure that they have less of a chance of breaking through the 9-to-5 and giving the corporations any challenge whatsoever. So pretty much, they're just fucking you because they know they can fuck you. Kind of like this sleazy guy that picks up, drunk girls at the bar.
Can we talk about cost of living? I would love nothing more. This is one of the things that makes me the most excited to live outside of the US. First things first, the biggest difference in my entire life, and I've talked about this a million times, is the food. My cost for a full week's worth of fresh produce, meat, and seafood per week is anywhere between $20 and $40 US total for the week for fresh, delicious, amazing produce and seafood and meat.
Beyond that, my apartment is $750 a month, which is on the very steep end here. And that is because I live in a really beautiful, fully furnished, very large 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom. The building has like a hot tub. It's very nice. And that's my choice. You can live a lot more simply than that.
I'd say utilities are like a third of the cost of America.
Healthcare is cheaper, transportation is cheaper, events are cheaper. And I live in a walkable city, so I can get around just by moving my body, which is...
So from what I can come to gather from the people who are making these videos, everything. Everything from the fact that our wages are too low, the fact that inflation is too high, the fact that people are having to pay way too much in rent, way too much in food. Just the fact that we're getting screwed and we're not going to take it anymore. Which, yeah, we are getting screwed. We've been getting screwed for a really, really, really long time. But the problem is the people who are trying to get everybody to start these strikes are not really thinking about the fact that people need to eat. People need to have shelter. Their big idea is just like, cross your fingers, they can't evict us all. I mean, they can and they have.